Welcome to the Darkstream. Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the Evil Legion of Evil, the VFM, the Dread Ilk, the Ilk, and of course, the Bears. So, I know a lot of you are probably thinking that this is some sort of takedown or expose or challenge or something like that. But honestly, it has nothing to do with any of that. The reason that I decided to do a dark stream talking about the martial arts is because a couple people have asked me about it. And they said, hey, Vox, we know you did some martial arts. We've seen you write about it occasionally on the blog, but why haven't you said anything about it on the Darkstream? So I thought, okay, well, why not? I'll go ahead and do that. But I didn't really know what to talk about. And so I remembered Owen's comments about Joe Rogan thinking that he was a ninja and all that sort of thing. So I thought, well, he must have done some martial arts or something. I know that he was a commentator at UFC, but when I think of Joe Rogan, I usually think of him as the guy who was on that television show where he's the janitor, which I liked. So anyhow, what a lot of you probably don't know is that after I graduated from college, I spent 6 years doing very heavy contact martial arts. And it was my best friend and I decided to learn martial arts because one night we were out at a club in downtown Minneapolis and a guy had tried to stop a purse snatcher, put him in a headlock, and the purse snatcher pulled a knife out of his pocket and stuck it right in the guy's neck. And we didn't see that happen, but we did see, the guy there just as the police were arriving like a minute later. Fortunately, there were police and paramedics nearby. We saw the guy getting, treated, and he was crying. He thought he was going to die. And it was terrifying because we realized that exactly the same thing might have easily happened to us. We realized at that point that we didn't know what we were doing. And, this was despite the fact that we were, young, we were healthy. I had, been a Division I sprinter on the track team. Did 2 years of that. We won 4 conference championships, indoor and outdoor. And after I got bored with track, I spent a season on the rugby team, which was a very good rugby team. And so anyhow, we went around to every single dojo that we found in the Yellow Pages. And there were some good schools: Bloomington Karate, Karate Junction, which was a Tang Soo-do center. There was this insane school. It wasn't even a school. It was like this group of guys who would meet in a guy's basement, and he had a room that was like completely covered with mattresses. And it was always, choke him out. And the thing is, they threw us right in. We had no idea what we were doing. So I was literally choking the guy. Choking him with my hands. Totally ridiculous. And so, anyhow, after we had visited 22 different martial arts schools, we went and found this little place that was just in a scary location. It was underneath a shopping mall. There's like a shopping mall, main level, and then you could like take this little ramp down. And there were two places down there. One was a dance studio, and the other one was this martial arts school. And so we went in to check it out. And it was interesting because everybody was wearing, it was the first dojo we'd seen where everybody was wearing black, except for one or two guys that were wearing white. And it was pretty cool because they had a full weight room in the back. That was the other interesting thing. It was the only dojo that we'd seen that actually had a weight room attached. And we were into lifting weights, and so that was promising. And then on top of it, they had everybody looked like they lifted weights. They lifted weights. You know, they were very competent. You know, good kicks, all that sort of stuff. But what really caught our attention was we happened to be there on Wednesday, which was sparring day, and they started sparring. And this guy who was wearing the white gi, and he was a black belt, he was just a fantastic kicker, just, you know, everywhere. And it was interesting because the guys in black didn't seem to kick as much, but they didn't seem intimidated by this guy either. And so I asked I said, why are these guys wearing white? And they said, he's a Taekwondo black belt who's joined us. He wants to improve his hands and stuff. And then the black belt threw a high roundhouse kick, and I didn't even see what happened, you know. But in retrospect, what happened was the guy blocked, but he didn't throw like what we thought of as a karate block. He just lifted his arm like this. And when he lifted his arm like that, he caught the ankle right there, and there was this big crack. And, you know, the guy in the white, the black belt in the white gi was like jumping back, and his ankle was hanging. You know, you could see it was clearly broken. And, you know, we were all horrified. And we couldn't believe the reaction because everybody started laughing. I mean, here we're like, you know, he just got his ankle broken. And everyone's laughing. And then somebody yelled, one of the senior guys yelled, "Hey, Warren, show us some of that Karate Kid shit." And he starts hopping on his one good leg with the other foot, just the broken ankle just dangling there. And I turned to my best friend and I said, "These guys are crazy." He said, "I know, we have to join here. Like, if we can survive here, we can survive any of these other schools, you know." So anyhow, it was a school called Fighting Dragons, and we joined and spent 6 years there. I still even have some of my stuff. These are my original gloves. They're very light. The problem with them, we learned, is that if you see, I didn't put the thumb in, if you see, can you see the problem there? See how it doesn't really cover your knuckles as well as it should? And so, you know, these were actually designed for Taekwondo fighters. And Taekwondo fighters don't really use their fists very much. And what we learned is that because we used our fists a lot, you would tend to cut people's faces or rip up your knuckles because they weren't properly covered. And so, so we ended up, jeez, I can't get this off. So these I love, the Cobras. Love these Cobras. They're light, they're fast, but they have a really nice padding right on the end, so it really protects your fists, and it really gives a little bit of cushion when it hits. I have my feet around here. I don't have any headgear because we didn't use headgear, you know. I was kind of pleased to find this though. My old mouth guard. Even our mouth guards were black. So, anyhow, I wasn't, one of the best ones at the dojo, but I was, respectable. After, 2.5 years, I was given the name Berserker by the sensei because I was one of, what they called the bangers. The bangers were the guys who tended to hit a little bit harder, the kind of folks that you don't want to spar with right away. There was a guy named Scott Hare. I was terrified to fight him. But, I made myself do it and took my beating on a weekly basis. And so, what a lot of people don't understand, and this is what I'm talking about when I'm referring to people like Joe Rogan. There's a difference between people who train and people who fight. And I'm not just talking about ineffective styles, show pony styles like Taekwondo and that sort of thing. I've fought plenty of Taekwondo fighters. I fought plenty of Taekwondo black belts. Never had any trouble with them. Our green belts used to beat up on the Taekwondo black belts because all they can do is kick. And so when you look at the stuff, what we did was a blend of Wing Chun Kung Fu, Shorin-ryu Karate, and Kali from the Philippines. That's the nasty stuff with all the elbows and knees. But what we really trained for was what was called shoot fighting back then. And shoot fighting was essentially preliminary MMA. It was very active sparring, full contact to the body, hard contact to the head. I spent 6 years with them. I broke 14 bones during that time. Got my nose broken in a public ring fight that we had with another dojo. And I estimate that I probably got punched or kicked hard enough that it knocked me down about 200 to 210 times. And I got knocked out once. This is in sparring. See, this is what's funny. These people are going, have you seen Joe's kicks, man? Rogan would annihilate Vox. We're going to get to that, okay? Just remember that you said that. Remember what you're saying, okay? So what a lot of people don't understand is that fighting is just as much about how you take a shot as how you deliver a shot. There's this theory in karate that if you can make the contact, then it's just as good because you're showing that you could have delivered the blow. But that's not fighting, because the way that you respond to getting brushed across the chin versus getting your head jacked back so hard that you're seeing stars is totally different. It creates a completely false reality. And there's no reality to it. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody who is very well trained, and I do think that Joe Rogan is very well trained. I admire the physical condition that he keeps himself in. I'm 50 years old myself. I understand how difficult it is to keep yourself in that condition. But the thing is that you cannot understand what fighting truly is until you actually engage in that kind of combat. And it doesn't matter whether it's street fighting. It doesn't matter whether it's ring fighting. Because the key is, and the one thing that you do not know, and you cannot know, is whether you're the kind of man who has the ability to get up and keep going after taking a shot. One of the reasons that I have such a high level of confidence compared to most guys is because I know beyond any shadow of any doubt that you can punch me as hard as you can in the face, hard enough to flatten me, and I will get up again. And I'll come right back at you. Because I've actually done it before many, many times. And so has every single other dragon in my dojo. That's why, 20 years later, living on a different continent, that sort of thing, I still have this very intimate connection with these guys, because you develop a very deep internal form of respect for people. Now, somebody mentioned the footage of Joe Rogan kicking somebody and winning a competition. That was what actually caught my attention, because as impressive as that looked, and it is impressive, that's something that we call point fighting. And point fighting is just a game of tag. Point fighters don't have the ability to fight with actual fighters. And I'll explain this in a little bit. I'm going to actually show you the video and explain what I'm talking about here. I'm not just talking smack. And again, I'm not questioning Joe's cowardice. I'm not saying that he's inept. I'm not saying that he isn't a complete master of all the techniques that he's studied. What I'm saying is that he's not a fighter. And somebody who only trains in techniques and only does drills will almost always lose to an experienced fighter, because it's very, very different when you have somebody coming at you, when you have somebody who is capable of reading you, anticipating you, and avoiding your strikes and your kicks and delivering their own. Some of you have asked how big I am. I kind of anticipated that question. So just to let you know, I am 175 centimeters. So I'm just under 5'9". And I currently weigh 175 pounds, which is about 5 pounds more than my fighting weight of 170. This is a picture, and there's actually a story behind this that's related to this. This is a picture of what I look like right around that time, right around my my fighting days. And so I'm about 3 inches taller than Joe, and I give up about let's see, he's probably 195 or so, so I probably give up about 20 pounds. Now that the guy, there's a story here that I'm going to explain, and just so you understand, I don't look very much different than that now. Okay. I still play, elite soccer. I'm not quite as strong, and I'm certainly not as fast. But anyhow, the gentleman in that picture is a Marine, a very famous Marine. And what was funny about that picture was that I was hearing the same kind of stuff from him that day that I've heard from some of you guys who are talking about how, oh, Joe Rogan would do this and Joe Rogan would do that. And so what was funny was that My uncle, he's not my blood uncle, but he's, he's always been my uncle to me. He had been giving me crap about not being a Marine pretty much from the time that I turned 21. And I was getting tired of it, especially since I had spent plenty of time, I'd spent all this time in a very hardcore martial arts dojo. And so I challenged him. I said, hey, come on, Uncle Chuck, bring it on. He said, oh no, we're trained to kill. We don't mess around. We train to kill. I said, so do we. So are you afraid? I said, you've just been questioning my manhood again. Are you afraid? So, of course, he couldn't back down. Now, you have to understand, my wife is there, my parents are there, etc. So anyhow, he came at me, and they timed it, and he tapped out in 7 seconds. And he was a little bit perturbed afterwards, but I explained to him, look, you guys in the military, you guys, train for a couple weeks on your hand-to-hand stuff. I've been training for 6 years, and I'm a lot younger and stronger than you are. I mean, come on. But the point is that that's the difference between good training and none, or very limited training. Now, let's get to talking about Joe now. I'm going to show you part of the video, and I'm going to see how many of you can see what's wrong with this stuff. Okay? This is Joe in training. Okay, now a couple of you have spotted some of this stuff, but what you have to understand is that that's impressive. It looks very impressive. He's in big shape. The kicks look like they're impressive. They make a lot of noise and that sort of thing. But what you have to understand is that to the trained fighter's eye, to the experienced fighter's eye, he's practically helpless. Let me give you an example. And just so you know, I've fought some reasonably well-known people. I fought C.B. Bunkhold, who was the world super flyweight champion from Bloomington Karate. He was better than I am, but he was definitely rubbing his jaw afterwards because I jacked him a few times pretty good. But what you have to understand is that experienced fighters know how to read people's bodies. I was a track sprinter. I was very, very fast. I'm still faster at 50 than most of the 20-year-olds on our club's teams. And my sensei once told me that I was, one of the fastest fighters, other than the C.B. Bunkhold, who is a champion flyweight. He said I was one of the fastest fighters he'd ever fought. I didn't understand it because I said, that's not possible. I said, how can you possibly say that when you kick my ass and have been kicking my ass for the past 4 years? And he said, he just grinned and he said, you're very, very quick. He said, but I know what you're going to do before you do it. And so what you see here, now watch what is happening when you watch the video. The first thing that you'll notice is that he's spinning. This is insane. This is hapless. It's hopeless. I actually got kicked out of a tournament when I was coaching my brother, who is at the gold belt level, because this guy was coming in and he was spinning like that. And at first my brother didn't know what to do, so he just stepped backwards. And I said, what are you doing? Kick him in the back. So as soon as Joe would start to do this, look at that. Bam. You do not have the time to spin when you're fighting somebody who knows what they're doing. That clip that was impressive from Joe's championship, point fighting days, the guy was coming in, so Joe spun and caught him in the stomach, got the point. You can't do that against a real fighter. If you spin like this, boom, right there, right as he spins, what you're going to get is you're going to get a front hop kick. What the guy that you're coming at, the minute that he sees your shoulders start to twist, he's going to hop forward on his rear leg, and his front leg is going to come up and go bam right in your kidney. That will cause that, because you're spinning, you'll get hit in the back and you'll be off balance, and then the guy will be on top of you. Okay? So that's just ridiculous. I mean, yes, it looks impressive, but it's a finishing move. It's not a starting move. Connor says people spin kick a lot in UFC. I'm guessing that they do not let you kick people in the back. That would be my guess. So let's look at the next thing here. Unfortunately, I can't pause it and start, so we have to go past this stuff. Okay, now here, what do you see here? Look how his front leg moves first. First of all, it's leading with a rear kick, which is way too slow. That would just get you a side kick right in the gut before the foot even came up. There's two problems with those kicks. Some of you guys are talking about how, those kicks, they're so powerful. No, they're not. They're just rear kicks. Any rear leg kick is powerful, but they're very, very slow. Somebody else just noticed the other big thing. He's dropping his hands. Okay? If you drop your hands when you kick, I guarantee the next thing you're going to get is a side kick right up under your chin. Because if your arm is down like this, and you're not a collie guy who's baiting the guy, what's going to happen is the kick is going to come right up there. And remember, a front side kick is much faster than that rear kick. So these kind of techniques, they look good to the amateur, and they're fine, more or less. I mean, but anybody who actually has fighting experience looks at that and says he's leaving himself wide open. I mean, so look at this again. Also watch how he telegraphs the kick. There's some minor technique issues too. His foot is not straight pointing at the target. It's like this. So what does that mean? That means that he doesn't have particularly good balance there. But if you watch how he takes a little step with his front leg, and then he brings up the kick, okay? This is the kind of stuff that we read he would do that once, maybe twice, and then he'd be in big trouble. You know, little things, watch the little front step of the foot, right there. Step, boom. The hands come down, there's the front step. Now here's the problem with the punching. Watch his hips. That's what we call poking. He's not snapping his hips at all, so there's no power in those punches. This is the same thing as before. Step, rear leg. Step, rear leg, hands come down. And then let's go to the punching again. Poke, 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 poke. No power at all. The hips don't snap. You can block those, and even if one lands, it's not going to hurt very much. And so, this stuff, poke, 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 it does nothing. I mean, yes, he's got a big upper body, but power comes from the hips. You know, the way that you knock somebody out is a combination of them coming in, catching them coming in, and snapping your hip with a rear hand. You know, I once saw my sensei fight the 11th ranked point fighter in the country, and he just about killed him with 3 defensive rear hands, just reading him, catching him coming in, and sinking the rear hand into the guy's stomach. And afterwards he said, I felt a little bad, but he said, I figured I better put it in the stomach. He said, because he was coming in so hard and so fast that if I'd hit him in the head, I would have knocked him out. So, the thing is that when you look at these, videos, I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with what Joe's doing. You know, he's just training. He's just, no, Shane says, this is completely irrelevant if you don't mention that he's a high-level BJJ black belt. Yes, I'm sure he's got some grappling and that sort of thing. But again, it doesn't do you any good unless you're actually in it and utilizing it when people are punching you in the head, when they're putting you in holds, and that sort of thing. The training is good. The training is great. I'm not criticizing doing the training. I am telling you, as a matter of absolute fact, that somebody who spends all their time in this kind of training and doesn't actually get in the ring and find out what kind of shot they can take has no idea how to fight. None whatsoever. I've seen this. You know, one of the things that was great about our training is that we got the chance to fight people. We had open sparring once a month, and guys from all kinds of different schools would come in. So we had the chance to fight all kinds of people. This guy, talk is cheap, and people get knocked out backing up all the time. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. Anyhow, it's but the thing is, why do I care? I don't care. I don't mind. I don't care at all. I was just simply watching the video as a trained fighter, as an experienced fighter, and just noticing stuff that would be obvious to absolutely anyone. Okay? If I were going to be fighting Joe, which I'm not because I'm 50 and he's even older. But if we were going to, I would simply be looking for those things and I would exploit those things. You know, everybody has tells. I'm not going, I don't I'm not interested in, we don't know who would win. We don't know who would win between anything. You know, one of the things that you need to keep in mind is that it's just like football. On any given Sunday, any team can win. In a martial arts ring fight, anything can happen. You know, yes, you can imagine who's probably going to win, but he says, Rogan is highly conditioned, probably jacked, has serious grappling experience, and I don't think these obvious tells reveal the whole story. Of course they don't reveal the whole story. But the point is that, you know, all of those people who are talking about how amazing those kicks are and stuff have clearly no idea what they're talking about. It doesn't show that there's any ability to fight whatsoever. What would impress me is to see him spar a few rounds of hard contact. I would like to see what kind of shot he can take and, you know, see if he's able to, you know, ignore a good hard side kick to the gut. If he's able to, you know, take the occasional roundhouse kick to the face. You know, but what I saw there was not impressive. You know, I think a lot of you who are impressed by that stuff simply don't understand much about what fighting is about. Which is fine. You know, if you haven't done it, you haven't done it. It's no big deal. This is funny. I'm a army infantryman, and I would where is that? Oh my gosh, that's funny. Let's see. This guy said he's an army infantryman who's in the army for 4 years, and he could take me out. Yeah, you couldn't. Let me see if I can get this. Maybe I need to move that up. There we go. About that whole thing. This infantryman thought he could take me too. It took me 7 seconds to get him to tap out. So, if you're in the army, if you're in the special forces, you don't learn much about hand to hand. Not compared to people who are studying it for years. Let's see. In fact, you know, we actually had a number of Army guys come in. You know, that was one of the great things about the open sparring nights, is that we had lots of experience with lots of different styles. There were guys from the Army, guys from the Marines, you know, special forces, you know, I mean, it's not like we didn't run into all of those sorts of things. So the two styles that I had the most trouble with were the pure wrestlers and the real Muay Thai fighters. Mostly because I didn't know really what to do with them, because they would just give you center line and then just somehow they would like take your best shot center line and then just hammer you on either side. It was such a bizarre style that I didn't really know what to do. So, anyhow, the Rogan. Yeah, I don't think Joe Rogan's gay. Somebody said Rogan would smoke you in a matchbox. He would smoke your pole. Yeah, I think I'll pass on that one. Here's the thing. The, you know, there's lots of people who know me. You can look up some of the guys that I used to spar with. You know, um, the Carl Bradford from Junction used to kick my ass. You know, we were just getting started. We were like, I think 2 years into it or something, and we actually went to Diamond Nationals with him. I didn't fight because I think I had a broken ankle at the time, but my best friend, he did. He actually won his belt class. Um, and also, I'll tell you some of the stories some other times, but uh, I've been in two uh, nightclub fights, and so I have a little bit of the street experience as well, although it wasn't actually in the street per se. Um, but again, it's not about who's tougher. You know, it's not about that. There are guys from my dojo that I barely touched in 6 years. Okay, what makes you tough is not the ability to put somebody else down. What makes you tough is the ability to get up and keep going after the other guy has put you down. That's the hardest thing. It's easy if you happen to be better than the other person or have a psychological edge over the other person or any of that sort of thing. It's easy to beat somebody. It's hard to take a beating, know that you're going to keep taking the beating, and get up and go right back into it. That's what's difficult. And that's what I admire about all the different fighters in all the different styles. You know, would you fight Joe one-on-one? Look, I haven't trained for fighting in 20 years. Joe has never done any serious hard contact fighting that I'm aware of. So I think the very concept is pretty absurd. Um, I wouldn't be afraid of it. I think it would be certainly an interesting last hurrah. Yeah, I mean, we did jujitsu and grappling. That's what I said. We did shoot fighting. It's all part of the training. If I have no doubt that if Joe could get into that situation, he would probably win. I would expect him to win. I would expect any wrestler who could actually manage to get me down to the ground would probably win. But you also have to keep in mind something that you guys obviously forget is that unlike Joe, I am an elite athlete. Okay? I mean, I don't know if you understand, but I'm the size of an NFL cornerback, and I have safety speed. NFL safety speed. All right? My time in the 40 is like 4.45 or something like that. Okay? That's not something that normal people can deal with. Back when I was sparring, I'll tell you one funny story just so you understand how our sensei used to deal with the arrogance of the athletes who would come in. When we joined, he told us that no one's allowed to spar for 3 months. You need to learn some of the techniques. You need to learn control. You need to have some idea what you're doing. So we said, okay, great. Um, and so, anyhow, after a month, he clearly picked up that I was, very, very fast, and that I was very confident in my athletic ability. So he came to me and said, we don't usually let people spar for 3 months, but I can tell you're special. So I want you to come on Wednesday and join the sparring class. So of course I'm thinking, that's right. I know I'm good. This great sensei understands that I'm good. Let's do this. And then I show up and he puts me up against a 12-year-old boy. I thought he was kidding. I mean, I seriously thought he was kidding. So, I don't want to hurt the kid. So we start, and I just kind of, actually, it was very much like Joe Rogan's punches. Poke, poke. And the kid just up and kicks me in the head. Total, I think it was a reverse, it was a Megari, a reverse heel kick. Kicks me in the head. I'm seeing stars. And so I'm thinking, okay, watch the feet. But I'm not pissed or anything. I'm just thinking, okay, I can't kick, but this kid can kick, so I need to watch out. So then I go in and, throw another poke or two. Then the kid throws a couple of kicks, but I'm ready for it. And like I said, I'm quick. So I just oblique or back out of the way. So then the kid waits until I do another poke, clearly has read me at this point, steps inside, throws his entire body weight behind an uppercut and hits me right under the chin so hard I'm seeing stars. And at that point, I back out, I call timeout, and I look over and I realize everybody in the dojo that was supposedly sparring at the same time, they're just faking it. They're all pretending to do it, but they're all watching us because the whole thing is a setup. So I went over to the sensei and I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. And he threw back his head and laughed. And he said, so you're smart too. He said, yeah, I just detected that you had a certain amount of unwarranted confidence in your speed and in your strength. So, I thought that we should teach you a lesson. And the funny thing was that years later, he used me to teach the same lesson to a 250-pound linebacker from the University of Minnesota who came in and wanted to join us. And he pulled the same routine. I know you're special. And then he said, yeah, why don't you match up with Vox here? And the guy looks at me. He's like 6'2", 250. He's looking at me going, who is this little guy? I'm going to break his jaw if I punch him. And so I spent the next 2 minutes beating the hell out of him. And he went to Alex and said, I don't know what I'm doing. Help me. And it was hilarious, but he learned the same lesson that I did. And what Alex loved to do is he would, if you were arrogant about your athleticism or about your size or about your speed or about your strength, he would match you up with somebody that you couldn't believe it would be possible for you to lose to. And that person would then beat the hell out of you. And then you're ready to learn. And it was a very, very effective method of teaching. It taught self-control. It taught humility. It taught respect. And, so again, I'm not dissing Joe Rogan in any way, shape, or form here. I think that it's very impressive how he's maintained his physical condition. I think it's great that he's continued with his training. I wish I had, continued with my training rather than just, lifting weights and playing soccer. But, gosh, some of you guys just don't quite seem to get this, or you came late. Rogan is a black belt in jiu-jitsu and taekwondo, has trained with tons of pro fighters. How is it possible to say he can't fight? Because he hasn't fought. Training is not fighting. Training is learning how to do things. Fighting is learning how to defeat the opponent who has a vote. And training is good. Training is great. Good training allows you to become a good fighter. Joe Rogan might well become a very good fighter, or might have been able to become a very good fighter if he had actually fought. But there is a fundamental difference, and any actual fighter will tell you there is a fundamental difference between training and real sparring, and oh my gosh, you have to love the gammas. You are not a fighter. You are not an elite athlete. You are a complete fraud. You are a weak-bodied, frail little nerd. I thought you were awesome, but now I see you are insane. Where does that even come from? You can look it up. There's a plaque at my university. East Coast Conference champions. My name's on it. You can look it up in the records of the Minnesota track and field. Tri-Metro Conference champion. 100, 200. I think they even have the times. I wear contacts when I fight. I wear contacts when I do anything athletic. So anyhow, it's the thing is that it's very different. It's very different when you are training versus when you are fighting. And the first time that you experience it changes the way that you look at this stuff. If you haven't been there, if you haven't done it, then you don't know what you're talking about. You just don't. It's the same way I don't know what military combat is like. I don't know what it's like to have people shooting at you. I have no idea. The difference between me and some of these people is that I know that I don't know what it's like. If you've never been in the ring, and if you've never had somebody coming at you full speed, then you don't know what it's like. You just don't. And there's no amount of training, even, part speed, half speed sparring, that can teach you that. Do you follow any diet to help you stay in shape? Yeah, I try to eat. It's just the usual keto heavy stuff. I do eat carbs, but I try to keep it light. And when I want to cut weight, like right now, I've decided I'm going to go from 175 down to 170, because in the upcoming soccer season, I'm going to be playing on the wing a lot, and I want to keep my speed up. So, let's see here. Would it not be more honest to say you were an elite athlete as compared to saying you presently are? Well, yeah, I think so. But you need to keep in mind that I'm still playing. I played in a practice with our club's second team. Average age is probably 19, maybe 20. And, actually scored a goal in the scrimmage. These are good teams. In fact, one of the guys on our first team scored the most goals of any any player at any level in the country last year. The guys that, one of the guys that, one of the only guys my age in the league, he's a former professional. He actually beat Real Madrid, his team, for which he started and played the entire game, actually beat Real Madrid in the Champions League. So, yes, I'm old, but I'm still competing at an elite level. Even my veterans team could probably not only defeat any high school varsity soccer team in the U.S. We would crush them. The level of skill over here is so much higher than it is in the States. It's not even funny. Let's see. Yeah, well, I got the gammas. Oh my God, Vox, you're so cool. It's not about that. But, Vox, have you thought of all the ramifications from viewers who might so often take this to be a challenge to their ego? I'm not concerned about that. If it upsets them, so what? I don't think. Yeah, Andrew Armstrong makes a good point. I don't think he claimed he could fight. Yeah, I'm not saying that he has, and I'm not. Again, I'm not criticizing or calling out Joe Rogan in any way, shape, or form. I am simply explaining to you that the idea of these guys who think that Joe Rogan is this like ninja fighting machine don't know what they're talking about. It's different. What weight division were you in? I don't remember what the exact name of it was, but I was 170 pounds. Let's see. Did you suffer any concussions during your fighting days? I got knocked out once, but I don't think I got a concussion. I don't know that I would have known. Let's see. We need a gamma banner in here, stat. Yeah, I think we're getting so many comments. I do need to get a comment moderator here at some point in time. Is boxing more practical than a specific martial art? Boxing is a martial art. It's a great martial art. Fighting real boxers is really, really tough if you can't use your hands and you can't wrestle with them. I would not want to box with a boxer. Let's see. Yeah. So anyhow, yeah, so that's what's going on here. Let's see. Yeah, see these guys. Huxley. You got to watch the video. Vox, do you even do a ground fighting art? Yes, I spent 6 years doing shoot fighting. Yes, I can box. I'm really thinking you're one of those traditional arts dummies. No, you're delusional. Rogan's. I don't think Rogan's a scumbag, but no, he can't fight. We actually analyzed the video. Okay. Is capoeira a viable style of fighting? I'm dubious. It sure looks cool though. What was your absolute worst injury? The most irritating injury I've had is just a nagging shoulder injury. I've never had any, I blew out my hamstring running the 100-meter once. That sucked. So anyhow, well, that's all we've got time for tonight. But just a reminder, Joe Rogan doesn't know how to fight. Doesn't mean he's not a good guy. Doesn't mean he's not in great shape. Doesn't mean that he doesn't train hard. But he doesn't know how to fight. He knows how to point fight, and that's great and all, but it's not real fighting. And you just have to deal with that and accept it. Have a good evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next Darkstream.